600K a month is not a lot of money. I had a friend that went from 600K a month to 1.1 million in a span of 3 weeks. Now, in this video, I'm going to explain to you exactly what he did to be able to do that, how it was possible for him, some of the strategies he used. Whenever you put something on a pedestal, you think that it's a lot of money, you put it out of reach, of course you're not going to be able to achieve that for yourself. And in this video, I'm going to tell you the exact strategies that he used, plus myself, plus a ton of other clients, to 3 to even 5x our income in a very short amount of time, and literally quantum leap. Now, a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about is all to do with your identity. It's not necessarily external business factors, because we all know, like, when you've been in business long enough, learning new business strategies doesn't change it. It's all about the way that you feel inside, because you can know almost everything, but then until you have like a really big shift in the way that you feel about yourself, in the way that you think, in your own perspective, that's when you actually start to create really, really massive change in your business and ultimately in your life. So the first thing that I want to talk about is how to actually start to almost normalize this into your identity, because when you have this huge goal, right? Maybe it's $1 million a month, maybe it's 2 million, whatever this goal is, to even use the words of huge, like me saying huge right now, that's something that I shouldn't be doing. But then when I talk about 600K a month, I'm like, okay, that's within reach for me. And I feel like that's not a lot of money. Like, that's a normal amount of money, right? And when I say normal, like, of course, like, it's not like it's a tiny amount or anything like that. And to be making that much money, it's awesome, right? Like, you know, I wish that upon everyone. But the point I want to make is, like, any time that we think that something is big, it's hard, we put it on that pedestal. And when something's on a pedestal, it's out of reach. So what we need to start to do is just get used to these things, used to these bigger numbers, used to these people that we hang around, used to talking in certain ways. And when we start to do that, we start to normalize it into our identity, that's when it starts to become more possible. Now, another thing that my friend did, the one that went from 600K to 1.1 million in 3 weeks, was he said it was actually very, very simple. Now, for him, he had this big fear. Well, it wasn't necessarily a fear, but he said to me, because we had like a conversation, I actually filmed the whole conversation as well. He asked me a bunch of questions about, like, why is it that when we're attached to something, it ends up running away from us, it ends up pushing itself away. It's a super interesting concept. I use this analogy of, like, this, when you have two magnets, when you have two opposing magnets, you know, two negatives of the magnet, and you try and push them together, you notice how they each push away. But then when you have the right identity, and then, you know, the money goal, for example, it starts to pull towards you. But if you have the wrong identity and then this big money goal, it starts to propel itself further and further away. So that's the way that this attachment works. If you want something really bad, you end up showing up in the wrong ways. You end up showing up in a way, in a place of lack, in a place of fear. And whenever you hold that as your identity, you're just going to show up in those ways. People are going to be able to notice it in the way that you speak, in the way that you show up. You know, your business deals are going to start to go not as well as you wanted them to, because this energy transmits itself into everything all around you. A big thing that he did was he just said that when he actually ended up getting this goal, because by the way, he was stuck between about 400 to 600K a month for, I think it was almost 1.5 years before we had this conversation. After we had this conversation, the 3 weeks after that, he then went on to hit about 1.1 million. Now, the big thing that he said that really helped him, because he actually messaged this to me in WhatsApp, was that he just simplified it all down. He said that he needed to become that person to actually get those results. Now, you never get what you want in life, you get what you're being. He needed to start to become that person. The way that he did it was just, he literally just did the things necessary, felt as though it was already done. And when you combine those things of taking the action, feeling as though it's already done, then it's literally inevitable that you get to that goal. Now, for this particular guy, he's really, really good at lying to himself. He lies to himself all the time about how successful he is. He literally, the way that he went from very low months, like when he first started in business a few years ago, to getting to where he was he just literally lied to himself. He got over all of the money blocks, he got over all of that stuff, and then, like, obviously, like, new levels started to come up and he couldn't break past that. we had this conversation. Obviously, he went and did a lot of inner work on himself and a lot of, work. And then he ended up having those results. But the point I want to make is that for him, he needed to stop feeling like $1 million a month was hard. Because he said to me, he's like, I've got this really big goal. And then right after he said that, I kind of looked at him like this, just like an interesting look, right? And then he said, he's English, by the way, and he went, oh, holy shit. Maybe that's why I haven't gotten there, because I feel it's really hard, and that for me to get to that goal, I'm going to be doing things that I don't want to do. And then again, I just looked at him. And then from there, obviously, all these realizations started to happen, started to make this change. Obviously, I'm not going to take credit for it, right? He did the work on his own. He did all of this. But just the point I'm making is you need to change your identity in order to get different results. If he had stayed the same, he would have stayed at that 400 to 600K a month version of himself, rather than getting to that 1.1 million a month cash version of himself. And this is what it's all about. Like for him, he'd been in business for years and years. He's actually a business consultant himself. So he knows everything about, all the business strategies, everything. But he just needed the most important thing to shift, which is his identity. I'm a big believer that when you do like 95% of your work on the inner work on yourself, but then you only maybe even do 5% on the actual external operational work things, you get so much better results. Like it's not even a question in my mind about whether doing the inner work versus doing the outer work, like whether there's a distinction between, or whether they're the same, like, you should do 50% of inner work and then 50% of outer work. No, like do 95% of inner work, 5% of outer work, and I bet you if you do that, that 5% of the time that you're working is going to be 100 times more effective, efficient than if you weren't doing the inner work. Like doing inner work, sure, yes, it takes up a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of focus, unless you get hypnotized, which when you do that, like literally I can change clients' minds within our first session. But the point I'm making is like, obviously when you do this work, it does require some effort. But the point is like, yes, it takes effort, yes, it takes work, but it's always going to pay off. Because like you also don't want to be that person, that guy or that girl that like makes millions a month. Like I've seen it happen. Like it's not nice. Like they make a lot of money, they make millions a month, and then they're just unhappy. Like if you're unhappy at like 200, 300K a month, of course you're still going to be unhappy at 1 million a month. It's not going to magically make you happy. Probably a reason that you're not at $1 million a month, just like that guy was that I was talking to you about before. Chatting with you, we are chatting. He thought that if he was to get to that goal, he wasn't going to be happy, right? So if you're already unhappy at this goal, getting to another goal, and then you associate certain stresses, certain, new things that you have to do that you don't want to do, of course that's also going to make it harder. So it's all about getting happy in the present moment, being someone that you actually love being, enjoying your life now, working on this identity, becoming someone that feels completely abundant. And then when you start to do that, getting to these big $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a month, they become so much easier because now there's no internal conflict. There's just all alignment, there's all congruence just on one major goal. And you're having fun while you're doing it. Like you're just living life, having an amazing time. Like I'm in Toronto right now. I just flew here. I'm here for like 6 days. I'm doing like a hypnosis mastery kind of like camp with my mentor just to get even better at hypnosis. Like I'm loving what I'm doing. Like I'm always in flow. I'm always like, I'm having great times with my girlfriend. Like I don't even work a whole lot. Like, it's just like, this is what life can feel like when you start to actually, do this inner work more. I've made more money than I ever have, by the way, in the last like 2 weeks, and haven't worked a whole lot. I have done some work, but like, you get the point. Like most of my time also has been doing this inner work, like meditating, doing hypnosis, like all of these things has been like, really, really pivotal to the success that I have today. And anyone that I ever speak with that has lots of money and that is also happy does this work that I'm talking about in these videos. So I hope this has helped, and I'll see you in another one. Peace out.